Welcome back, Profi Plays. I'm Profi, and we are picking up with Cepheus. We have made it to MASOAYAMA, so that is where we are going to be. All right, so just so you know, the last jump would be from here, Xozaliv, to MASOAYAMA, the capital of this subsector, despite the fact that it's kind of on the edge of the subsector here. But nonetheless, it is the capital. All right, so while we are here, the first thing I want to do, so first thing we need to arrive and make sure that everyone revives correctly. So let's see. Now we know that uh, two of my people, that is Garrett Damocles and Hazel Perrin, are both have high enough endurance, so they're definitely going to revive well. Wilbur Orla, uncertain. So let's find out. Oh, he's fine. All right. I know it's one of those where, like, if I rolled a two, then we weren't going to make it up. Make it up? Yeah, we weren't going to make it. All right. All right. So, what happens now that we are here in the capital? A couple things, right? So, I'm going to go ahead and pull out. Now, unfortunately, this is something that I've noted before. Now, I was doing a little bit more research, and the guide that I'm using, this Playing Solo Classic Traveler, I'm using this along with some things from the second edition solo supplement from Zozer Games. Um, Unfortunately, this is not available in. It is available in this form, but you have to buy a different product to get this. Right, so I'm not using this as much anymore. I'm actually switched over to using more of the stuff from Solo 2E. But anyway, so what happens in the capital? So a couple things. So one thing that happens in the capital is that there should be a couple storylines happening here. So this has at least three background campaign plots, at least two new and powerful NPCs. You're a big NPC. In our case, that'd be Emerson Bryant, the one that is the hunter. Um, should be involved in plots on the capital world. Right, so the first three patrons met on the capital will all have missions that are somehow connected with or introduce right one of those plots. Creating the three patrons their missions may give you a clue as to what the secret background plots might be. And also we need to give the characters a ship. So that's another thing that has to happen. Right? So we need to figure out like where the ship comes from as well. So, and it might be that this is just where, like, if we had gotten a ship as part of the mustering out process, this is where we'd acquire it. But that is not what happened. Instead, we have no claim to a ship. So we're going to have to acquire the ship some other way now that we are here. Another thing about the situation that we are in is that we have very little money. So the last planet we were on, uh, we had an extremely anticlimactic episode where Wilbur was bedridden because he got some kind of weird local illness. It wasn't going to kill him, but it did keep him out of commission for a couple weeks. Meanwhile, I made the executive decision that uh, Garrett and Hazel were not going to go on without him. Instead, they were going to just kind of stay by his side, take care of him, and not really do much because we had enough money for them to go ahead and get by and also make passage to MASOAYAMA. Unfortunately, a consequence of that decision is that now they have very little money. All right. So they're not in a great position financially. Right, so that is where we are right now. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside because I'm really not using this for the missions at this point. Instead, I'm using stuff from Zoser Solo. One thing that I was going to say about this. So this particular supplement, it used to be available on a pay what you want basis back when I started this series. It is no longer. Instead, it is packaged with another version of this thing from Zoser Game. It's $2.50. There's a Okay, so this one that I have here is like 22 pages. The new one, I believe, is 34 pages, so it has been expanded somewhat. I don't know what's in the new version, but apparently they did package the old version along with that. Right, so it's the little black book version of playing solo Classic Traveler if you want. Okay, so that's all out there. So on our to-do list here in MASOAYAMA, summing this all up. So in terms of storylines, now this supplement says to have three. I don't think I want to do three. I think I want to do two because this is where there's some disagreement between what is going on with this supplement and what's going on with Zoser Solo, just like the solo the general solo supplement, it suggests two storylines are probably enough. You might be able to handle three. So I think I'm going to try to stick to two bigger storylines. So one is whatever Emerson Bryant is up to. So we'll try to integrate him and his stuff as much as possible. The other one that I've decided is actually going to be player driven based on Hazel and her mission. So we know that our three people, their motives as they left whatever their positions were, we know that Wilbur was just looking for something that was less stressful than what he had been doing. We know that Garrett was seeking fortune, and we know that, and this is the one that I want to emphasize, is Hazel's motivation. She is seeking a missing friend who she believes to have come to MASOAYAMA, right there. That is her ex-lover, Charles. Right, so we've arrived here at MASOAYAMA. We have a few things we're trying to do. One, we want to try to find Charles. Secondly, we want to try to acquire a ship. And thirdly, we need our storylines. So one of them is going to relate to Charles, the other one is going to be what Emerson Bryant is doing. I don't know that our player characters really know that much about Emerson Bryant, except that he was involved with like one mission that they did at one point. But nonetheless, I think in the background, I, taking the role of the GM, I am going to emphasize that. Okay, so at least maybe. Okay, that's something in my mind I'm going to try to integrate. All right, so let's go ahead then and follow our process. So we are using the campaign guide for travelers. Now, I also have been thinking some about possibly when we acquire the ship, switching over from a traveler campaign to a Star Trader campaign. I was doing some of the arithmetic here, so I'll just talk some about this because I'm thinking about it. Right, so they give you the choice in like this section of what I'm doing. I just kind of print off the relevant section from that solo supplement because each of them is maybe like depends on the specific type of campaign you're talking about. The traveler campaign, it's literally 4 pages. So when I print it out the way that I do in kind of this booklet format, it's just 4 page. It's just 1 page front and back. The Star Trader campaign, I believe, is 7 pages in the book, something like that. So I was looking through. They have different ways of you doing the arithmetic for the accounting. That's it. And so the thing that is holding me back from wanting to just hop into a Star Trader campaign is that none of our folks have a pilot skill. We have a really good navigator, so we don't have to worry about that. We don't have anybody that does the engineering. We don't have a medic. And these are the four types of people you'll want to have on board. So, of those four roles on even a small merchant ship, we can only fulfill one of them, which means we're going to have to hire 3 people. That is going to be expensive. Also, if we're talking about the ship itself, I mean, it turns out the ship itself is your major expense if you're going to play this way. So, for example, I did the math of one of the things in the supplement they suggested is it's a 200-ton um, like free trader kind of ship. I forget exactly what they called it. The class was like Hugin class or something like that. Anyway, so when I redesigned this using, I didn't redesign it. I just drew up that same design using the Cepheus Universal rules, and it turns out it's 61.6 million credits to make this thing. Now, the traditional way of accounting for the mortgage payment is you divide that by 240 to find out what your monthly mortgage payment is. So that means the monthly mortgage payment, if we follow that path, would end up being here. If I take off the discount, is it's like 257,000 credits per month, which with standard rates for cargo and all of that, you're talking about yeah, it's it's not going to pay for it. It's basically impossible. I think when I did the math, um, assuming you had to pay the salaries and all of kind of the typical payments and all of that, you would end up having to make over 4 full jumps, like with all of your cryo berths filled, and all of your cargo space filled, you have to make over 4 jumps per month to cover all of your expenses. I think it's obvious that's not very practical given that each jump is going to take you a week, and then typically you would be in port for a week. So yeah, that's not going to be practical. Now another option though, is there are lots of ways of doing the counting. Now here I think part of the problem is that I'm trying to merge two different systems, right? So one is that the solo supplement, specifically this chapter in it, is based on the old traveler rules, right, which has a different way that, in particular, speculative trading works than what you see in Cepheus Universal. So Cepheus Universal accounts for ship costs very differently than you would find, say, here in um, the typical traveler rules. Right. So specifically, ship costs it's just per trip and it's 50 credits per ton, right? So in this case, 200-ton ship is a 10,000 would be your running cost. That's it. Now, I suppose technically you might be able to add a mortgage on top of this or whatever. It's Cepheus Universal rules are clearly not as a trading design, but nonetheless we could use that as our jumping point and instead just kind of use the systems that they use, which would be one if you're not doing any speculative cargo, then you would just make an admin roll whenever you make a jump, and then that would determine whether or not you made a profit or whether you just broke even. And then you also have the possibility of adding speculative trading on top of that, which we would probably do, just because of, you know, we don't have any admin skills, but we do have broker skills within our group. Right. In any case, putting all of that thought out there, let's see what we're going to do on MASOAYAMA. So what do we know about MASOAYAMA as a, let me pull up my supplement here for travelers because I'm still using that. And there's my random tables. Okay, cool. So MASOAYAMA as a planet. What do we know about it? It's a Class A starport. That's great. That means that we can have a ship built here if we wish. The planet itself is somewhat on the small side. It's about the size of Mars, which means it has somewhat light gravity. Its atmosphere is on the thin side, but is breathable. So its pressure is about half an atmosphere or so. Uh, the description of it in terms of hydro, it's about 90% water, which means then we only have a few small islands around, and there are tens of millions of people that live here. Governed by an impersonal bureaucracy, the law level is extreme, meaning all weapons are banned on this planet. I need to figure out what I'm going to do about that because we do have some weapons being held by our party. And then in terms of tech level, it is an average stellar tech level. Battle dress exists. AI is well developed. Cloning is developed. DNA modification is fairly common. It is an amber travel zone because of the extremely high law level. It is considered a garden planet, so it's a pretty place to be. In terms of the just more a narrative description, few islands, some of them are uninhabited, others are very densely populated. A few islands close together, connected by bridges, like kind of imagine like a New York City sort of feel. That's the capital of this planet and, in fact, of this subsector. There's also the possible location where Hazel's friend Charles may possibly be. But this is one of those needle and haystack kind of situations. All right, so that is where we are. So let's go ahead and follow our structure. So we did just arrive. We did roll to come out of cryosleep, but we have not yet done a starship encounter. Let's go ahead and roll on our starship encounters table and find out what happens, if anything. Now, this time it is more likely we're going to have a starship encounter simply because it's an A level starport rather than an X level starport, which is the same no starport at all, which is what we had previously. All right, so here we go. And let's see what we've got. So, Class A. So, main world population is not high enough. There is no naval or scout base here. Yeah, no bases. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to roll. It's a 2. None. All right. How about piracy? You can end up with piracy if you get a 12 or higher. Nope, no piracy. All right. These piracy warning rules you wouldn't roll a 12 plus on a 2d6. All right, well, in any case, nope, we don't have to worry about this. We don't have any kind of um encounter. It's that simple. All right, cool. Well, in that case, we do get to the starport. Yeah, I'm going to say that we're going to go. This, I'm imagining the starports here being kind of on the planet, right? So, we whatever transport we are on, right, goes down to the planet. Do we have some kind of starport encounter? That's the next question. So, starport encounters. Here we go. It's a D66. So I'll just read left to right here. So left to right, this would be a 41 then. 41 indicates someone needs to get off world fast, but it's not as simple as that. Ooh, okay. Well, I mean, let's go ahead and open ourselves up to the possibility this might be somebody we would interact with. The thing is, we can't help them get off the world that fast. Now, another thing that I want to deal with, right? So we encounter this person that wants to get off world fast. So I want to know what kind of person this is. So I'm going to roll in the colorful locals table again. Okay, so it's 11 adventurers, right? So it's some adventurer needs to get off the planet as quickly as possible. We run into them, and I suspect because we can't help them, they pass us on by. Now, one big question though. We know it's at a very high law level here. In fact, the law level is a D, right, which would translate to a 13, which means you're going to be running into, anytime you might run into law enforcement, you will run into law enforcement, is really what it boils down to. Now, we have the problem that all weapons are banned, but we have some weapons. So, how do we handle that? So, I was talking to my wife about this actually. Like, I don't know whether it's something like as soon as you get off, they just confiscate whatever weapons you happen to bring, or whether it's something like they will be stored somewhere for us. I really don't know. Especially because in my mind, I'm imagining that the government on this world is very draconian, even if it is very impersonal, right? So it's not like we have a dictator, just ruling at a whim. But at the same time, this is something where it's going to be. Um, we can't expect a lot of leeway. I guess I'll put it that way. So that's the question. So I'm going to pose this as a yes or no question to the oracle. So I'm going to roll my d6 here and just say, right, do our weapons get confiscated? It's that simple. Right. So do our weapons get confiscated? If the answer is no, right, then they're going to get stored. The answer is yes and. So I'm not going to worry about the and because I think I don't want that complication at the moment. But that means that those weapons that we had are now gone. Right? We just don't have them anymore, right? Which means, in our case, a Wilbur is fine. He has some armor, but he'd never had a weapon. Meanwhile, Garrett, sorry, plasma rifle and your combat knife just got seized. Can you tell I'm erasing? All right, yeah, it's all right. Sorry, Garrett. And oh, rapier and gyrojet pistol and agonizer. All of these things gone. So if we're going to be getting into any fights, it's going to be pure fisticuffs here. Which it would be better if we didn't anyway, just because the only person that we have in our party that has any combat skill, like literally at all, would be Mr. Perfect Garrett. Okay. All right, so that's that. Okay. So we get off. Our luggage is gone through, and all of our weapons are taken away from us. And that's what happens. It's that straightforward. All right, and we have very little money at this point too. We don't have enough. We might have enough money to like get ourselves someplace to stay for a week, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think between us we do actually have enough money for a week's stay. Okay, all right. So the only weapon we have now is what is built into London I believe it was 47 was the name that I gave. Was it London 47? Our robot. Uh, yeah, it's London 47 because London 47 does have a laser rifle built in. Uh, I'm going to say that got missed, just for the sake of argument, because it turns out London doesn't have any combat skill either. He's not a well-designed robot. So, all right. So we met some people. They're on their way out rather quickly. Now we need to roll on the World Encounters table. So, as we are here on this planet, what do we encounter in this first week? 26. Okay, it says holiday or festival celebrations slow things down, but become an enjoyable diversion. Well, that's nice. Right, so, and they're supposed to roll for patrons, enemies, or colorful locals as directed. Make task rolls, create a plan to deal with patron jobs or encounters. So I think that I'm going to seek out a patron. Okay, so this is going to be mission number. Forget what mission number we're on, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, maybe it's mission number 7, I think. Or maybe it might be 8. Anyway, this is going to be, I'll just write it, mission. So we have our session here. I don't know what mission number it is, but we are going to go ahead and roll up the mission. Okay. So, for this mission, I'm going to roll just like with we did with the mission machine. It's the same kind of stuff. So we seek out a patron, and what does our patron? Who is our patron? 33. It's a merchant. Okay, this is probably good. Right, so a merchant. The mission is 61. Find a missing person. Okay. Right. So we have a merchant. I'm going to need a name for that person. And who's the person that's missing? 61 again. Oh, we're on the patron table. Okay. 13. A hunter. Ah, okay. Well, I need to give this merchant a name. So first thing, I'm going to check. Have we come across any merchants before? I don't think that we have. We have not. All right, so I need a merchant name. So let's go ahead and pull up my uh, website for some random names. So we got a random name generator here. Random name generator. Okay. Fauna Systems. So Fauna Systems wants us to find, right, a missing person, a hunter. This who the hunter is should be obvious to us, because I mean, hunter is part of one of our main storylines. So this person, I believe, is seeking out for some reason um, our well, I was gonna say our friend, but certainly not our friend, Emerson Bryant. So Hunter Emerson Bryant. Okay. So a couple questions about this, right, before we start making too many plans. So one question is, right, is Emerson Bryant believed to be here on this planet? Yes, but. So what's the but have to do with? Well, let's see. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pull out our inspiration table. Okay. So I'm just going to roll an action and a theme. Right, so we've got 31, demand, 46, home. Demand, home. Okay, so it's demand, home. Well, I mean, the obvious thing to me, right, is that he's believed to be on planet. Uh, certainly his residence, his permanent residence would be here on this planet. But he was found not to be there. Right? Right. So we've already checked his home. Right? He's not there. Right? He's supposed to be there, but he is not there. I think that's what's going on. So I think I'm also interested. So Juana Cisneros, she's a merchant. So I think it makes sense to me. Here's the story. We're gonna build up the story here. Right. Here. So I'm going to say that in terms of background, that Cisneros hired Bryant to acquire some kind of rare wildlife. Right, so some kind of rare animal or something like that. That's what I said. Right, so rare wildlife, right, for a wealthy client. Right, and then Juana is naturally going to be the one to transport it right to that client. And the client is probably, let's see, I believe that we had a rich world. Yeah, Tanis. Tanis is the rich world, literally the rich world here in this subsector. Right. For a wealthy client on Tanis. Right. But he never delivered. So he's just gone. Right. So he did not deliver. He's been out of contact some time. Okay. So that is the situation. And what Hana wants us to do is find where he is. Now, I don't think we have to do much more than that, right? Uh, we just have to find where he is so that she can deal with him, right? So I think that that makes sense. That's what we're going to be trying to do. Okay. So then the question is, how can we, right, use the skills that we have, right, to hunt him down? Now, this is where moving away from the playing solo classic traveler and instead into those or solo, we have choices about how we handle this now. So I could like play things out, right, bit by bit, or I could do that scene resolution, which is very much like the mission machine, with a little bit more detail thrown in there. Which I kind of want to do that, right, to see whether we can find him. So first thing, I need to come up with a plan. That is the first thing that has to happen. Right. So we need to come up with some plan. So the only real lead we have is we know that his permanent residence is here. Now I think it makes sense that Juana would tell us, right, where that residence is expected to be. Right. So I think that that makes sense that we would have that information on us. Now we also know that he is not there. So what can we do to try to find where he actually is? Now I'm thinking through the most likely thing to me, right, is that he is out on an expedition. This seems fairly obvious. He's believed to be on planet though, which suggests that somebody probably checked any like um, records or that kind of thing for people leaving the planet. So he is probably not accounted for there. And that doesn't mean that he did not leave the planet, but it does mean that he did not do so in a registered fashion. Possible, but not traceable, at least not easily traceable. So that is one thing. Uh, what else do we have as part of this mission? So how can we start bringing together then the skills that we have? So thinking about the situation, what do we need to do? The most obvious thing, we want to go and investigate his home. We also want to investigate whatever records, right, we can happen to get hold of and see if we can make some kind of sense of those. Okay. So I think that those are things that would make some degree of sense. So I think it makes sense here thinking about the skills that our people have. Wilbur, while his best skill is forgery, it's not obviously useful here. On the other hand, a computer skill might be useful in the searching for records. That would make some degree of sense. It also makes sense here, thinking about what Garrett's skills are. I mean, combat is not going to be a great skill. I don't see that Garrett has really a skill that is going to be immediately and obviously relevant. We could have him use his leadership skill to organize what we're doing. Hazel has navigation carousing. Okay, she has a level of carousing, as does Wilbur. Uh, Vaxsuit and Broker. So I think some level of carousing might also be useful. Right. So hit up if we can figure out like where he would often frequent in terms of bars and the like. We might possibly be able to get some information that way. So I think that that's what our plan is. Is that okay? So here's the plan. I often find myself rolling these. Right. So if Wilbur is going to use computer, try to gather whatever information he can that way. Um, our friend Garrett is going to use leader, and then Hazel, our friend, is going to use carousing. Okay. Now remember, the way that plans work here is a little bit different now that I've switched over to the solo reference instead. Right, so first thing we have to give it a difficulty rating based on the difficulty of the plan. Right, so shaky if quite a few things could go wrong, solid if most eventualities are catered for, and then foolproof if almost nothing can go wrong. I'm going to say this is a solid plan, in that we're both interacting with individual people as well as with information. So I need an 8 plus. Now, danger level. Do I think this is safe or dangerous? I think this is pretty safe. I mean, we're not looking to confront anybody, so I would be surprised. So dangerous if there is a chance of physical injury or death if things go wrong. I think little, if any, physical danger exists. So we're going to roll then to resolve the scene. So first thing I want to do, again, I'm going to require successful rolls for the skills to be able to be applied. All right, so let's go ahead and roll those. So first, Wilbur's computer skill. 6 plus 1 is a 7. We need an 8 to pass that task roll. So that failed. Okay. Then Garrett's leadership. 11, so that succeeded. And Hazel's carousing. 8 plus 1, that is a 9. That also succeeded. Now, there we go. Now, another thing we want to do. Oh, okay, let's find out whether we succeed or not. So plus 1 for each success. We get plus 2 on that. Plus 1 for a crucial piece of kit or a great asset. The thing that I'm thinking about is that we do have that the journalist that is embedded in his organization. The problem is that they're not on this planet. And I'm going to go by kind of the traditional traveler rules. We have faster than light travel, but not faster than light communication, which means it's not like we can just Star Trek style call up on subspace or something like that, and distance doesn't matter. So I don't think that that particular asset is available to us at this point in time. So that is what I've decided here. Okay, so plus 1 for okay. Minus 1 for participating character that is unsuited to the mission. Okay. Well, I mean, I think we found something for all of them to do. Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and roll this then with a plus 2. All right. So plus 2, I need an 8 or higher to succeed. 6 plus 2 is an 8, so we did barely succeed. All right. So that means that we managed to get information about where he is. And so I think that's important for us to know. We also need to roll for a consequence, right? So to roll for a consequence here, but it's a little bit different. Right? So I just roll here again, and this is just a straight 2d6 roll against whatever the difficulty rating was. So I'm rolling against an 8. I rolled a 7. Right? So there is going to be some kind of consequence. Here, this is at a oh, okay. So I roll 1d6 plus 6, and then I get another plus 2 on top of it because the plan was a success. So this plus 8. 6 plus 8 is a 14. There's a sudden twist in the story. All right. So that is the consequence. I also want to do one more thing. before we start interpreting all of this. We have all these elements. So one, Wilbur failed on his computer role. Two, Garrett succeeded on his leader role. Three, Hazel succeeded in her carousing role. Four, we were successful. We know now where Emerson Bryant is, so we can report this back to Juana Cisneros. Very important because we really need that money. And then consequence, there's some kind of twist in the story. Last thing I want to do, because I have not yet rolled, so if two characters work together, you're supposed to roll on the relationship table for one of the pair. Right? So what we learned previously is that uh, Garrett and Hazel actually have a history. They're old friends, but they're not getting along very well right now. Uh, I don't yet know much about the relationship between Wilbur and either Garrett or Hazel. So I want to roll for the relationship between Garrett and Wilbur and find out what that relationship is like. So this is 42. 42 says sexual partner. Okay. All right. So they were apparently lovers at some point. Maybe they are now, for that matter. That's not something that I knew, but we have learned, apparently. All right. I mean, okay, let's go with it. So Wilbur and Garrett. Okay. So it's something we've learned now about their relationship. So I mean, I'm going to I'm just going to keep that in the background as far as that goes. Okay, so that's something that may possibly affect naturally the way that they would interact with each other, right? So what has happened then? We also need to roll something about the twist. I want to get more inspiration about this twist in the story, what that's like. So the twist in the story, a couple things I'm going to look at here. I'm going to roll urban first. So 51 headquarters. I'm going to roll personality. Roll it as a 15. Successful. Okay, headquarters successful as a twist. So here's what I'm thinking. Okay, so how do we put all these pieces together? Well, we know. Okay, so Wilbur failed in his computer check. So all I'm going to say there, right, but I don't think he failed miserably, if I recall correctly. His role wasn't terrible, but he just couldn't find any useful information that might lead us toward where Emerson Bryant would be. Right. And Garrett took on leadership role, was organizing these things, right? And I think maybe he played some role in figuring out where it is um, that Emerson would frequent on a regular basis. That might be the kind of leader role that makes sense, so he could then direct Hazel to go to the right place. And Hazel went to the right place and did actually get information. Now, this is where I think the twist is going to come in. That is that I think what happened was that the was that this bar that she went to was near right the headquarters for his organization. I assume they have some office or something like that. Uh, something like Bryant Expeditions or something along these lines, right? Um, or, Emerson Exotics, maybe. Oh, that sounds funny, but Emerson's Exotic Animals or something along these lines. That's fine, right? So, and then it's not far from there. It would be at the establishment that he would frequent. Uh, and she managed to find right somebody who works with him and got where his location is. So here's the question. Right. So first thing I want to know. And we know before we said it was believed that he is on planet. So I want to know, is he in fact on planet? So I think that this is likely. So I'm going to go ahead and roll 2d6, take the higher of the two. 6, that's a yes. Yes, he's definitely on planet. And And it makes sense for him to have returned right, from the expedition that he was on. So, I mean, this was really just a matter of one had bad timing, right? Right. So, I think that's what it is. So he has, so Emerson has returned from whatever expedition he was on, and is now at home. Okay, that would make some degree of sense, right? Now, I like this idea, and the sudden twist is that I think that Hazel might get herself offered a position working in his organization. I think that'd be cool, right? So like she's carousing and apparently did so extremely successfully. In fact, got herself a job. So so I want to know, would she take that job? I mean, it's not impossible that she would take it, and that would line us up for access to a ship, for example. That'd be something, and that would be a different kind of ship. It wouldn't be star trading anymore, because like we're not really looking to carry cargo. We would be transporting animals, right? So I think that that would be interesting. Also really interesting because Emerson Bryant was originally supposed to be like a villain in this, but what we have learned about our party is that they're not necessarily on the right side of the law all the time either, right? So that might be what happens. So the question is this. So I need to think a little bit more about Hazel. Let's look at Hazel's some of her psychology. What do we know about her? Okay. So we know that her parents were wealthy. We know that. Okay. That's true. Okay. Uh, so we don't know a whole lot apart from the fact that, like she has, her Charles has vanished. That's really the big thing that we know about her. And she came from a high-tech garden world somewhere, probably not in this sector, I would guess. I mean, unless she came from here, that's possible. Although I think that the level of technology that I rolled for her world was higher than we see here. Oh, maybe I actually didn't roll for a specific level of technology for her. In any case, right? Hmm, so I'm not positive, right, whether she would take this job or not, but I think it's very possible. I think it's very possible. So I'm just gonna roll it. I'm gonna roll it likely and see what happens. Three. Three is a no but. Okay, so no but. So that means so while she was offered a job, so Hazel's offered this job. She refuses, but I think she'd be willing to take on like as a freelance basis, that kind of thing. But asks to be added as a freelancer for Emerson's organization. That makes some degree of sense to me. Okay. All right. So I think we have learned some important stuff here. So we have gotten information. We know that Emerson Bryant was out somewhere doing an expedition. We know that he has returned. We now have some contact where we may get in some more regular contact with his organization, could get jobs from them, that kind of thing. So I think I might occasionally just declare, or maybe just roll to see if there is a job available from them. And remember, we're still seeking out Charles as well. We also want a ship of some kind, right? So I think that like there are things kind of coming together here. All right. So just gonna make some final notes here in terms of next time. I think I'm going to stay on MASOAYAMA, but I think next time is going to be another mission. on MASOAYAMA, just with notes. We're still seeking Charles. Still need a ship. And now have a regular contact with Emerson Bryant, thanks to that. So there we go. Now, I'm curious what the reaction is. All right, so I'm going to do a reaction roll. Just, just why not? Right. All right, so let's go ahead and check a reaction roll. So I want to know how Wilbur and Garrett feel about this. So I'm just going to, so you make the reaction roll, you just roll it 8 or higher, there's no bad reaction. Okay, 4, there is a bad reaction. I wonder who it's from. So 1, 2, 3, it is Wilbur. 3, it would be Wilbur. Okay, so what is his reaction? 3, he loses his temper. The situation has gotten to the character who vents their anger at everyone around them. Is different than an argument. Well, this is different to an argument because, British. Um, everyone gets it this time. Okay. Exactly what has triggered this bout of bad temper depends on the current situation, right? So Wilbur is apparently very upset. I think this makes some degree of sense because he is under some stress because what he did really didn't contribute to their success this time. Right. So I'm just going to make a note here that Wilbur has a temper tantrum. At the other two. And I'm going to say it's triggered right by Hazel's success. All right. So for whatever reason, like, he was perfectly fine, right, with them, assassinating people and working with assassins to help them try to assassinate people. But for some reason, right, he's not happy with the idea of them working with Emerson Bryant. I don't know why that is. Something that maybe will reveal itself in the future. But he's not comfortable with this, and given the situation at the time, he flips out. All right. So apart from that, we just have some accounting to do, but they now have done a job, so I think they've brought in enough money that they're going to be able to pay for being able to live here for a little bit. So I think I'm going to call it there. This is Coffee then, signing off.